Welcome to My Roman Empire, the podcast where a special guest tells us about the pop culture moment that lives in their mind rent-free, i.e. their Roman Empire. We are your Awkward Prods, your Roman Emperors. I'm Linus.
And I am Joseph Martin.
Today's guest is a podcaster, writer, comedian, activist, and icon. Her achievements are, too many to list because that would be the entire episode, so I'll just name
I'll go make a cup of coffee and you do that.
Yeah, sure. Her award-winning podcast, The Guilty Feminist, is, of course, internationally acclaimed and has reshaped the conversation around feminism and activism for so many people. She is the playwright of the acclaimed Never Have I Ever, which has been performed both in the UK and Australia. She's author of multiple books, including 6 Conversations We're Scared to Have, which was released last year. And she is the screenwriter for the upcoming animated film Bad Fairies, starring Cynthia Erivo and Nshuti Gatwa. Please welcome Deborah Francis-White.
Hey,
Welcome to your own studio.
I am delighted to be here.
You only had to go downstairs. It's
Thank
lovely
you.
commute.
And I was late.
Yeah.
Fashionably, it's fine.
Yeah, absolutely. I made Linus and Joseph come to my house. And I didn't make them, to be fair. I didn't force them.
It's a blessing,
No, against our
really.
will. We're here on our own will.
Yes, they've definitely come on of their own will. But I invited them into my space because we make podcasts here. And even then, they were here and set up before I got downstairs. I was coming off another call. So,
Yes. And also, we were a few minutes early. And anyone who knows Linus will know that never happens.
So it's a very important occasion. Like, I'm getting to be in Deborah Francis-White's home and recording a podcast with, my podcasting hero.
Stop it.
No, but thank
So it's
you
good to know
so
that that's the thing
much
you'll be
for
on
doing
time
this.
for.
Exactly.
Not our own wedding, nothing that's been,
No.
none of the shows.
But this is more important.
Great.
I've listened to Guilty Feminist for so many years.
This is true.
And it's like...
As have we all.
Yeah, absolutely. And I just remember listening to it before I was doing Fringe in 2018, really hoping you'd come and see my show, which didn't happen, but you came to see other shows later. And I've listened to it throughout lockdown. There are so many memories of me listening to the podcast. So sitting here talking to you is just on a podcast is like a pinch me moment. So thank you for being here.
Well, I'm delighted. Can we talk about how we met?
Yes.
Yes, please.
You
Let's do
gave
that.
me a flyer, I
Yeah.
believe, and I said,
Yes.
"Oh, this looks brilliant." And you said, "Oh, we're massive fans of The Guilty Feminist." And I tried to come to your show, but it was sold out. Do you
Yes.
remember that?
Fringe. It was Fringe 2022, and it was
And
one of the final days.
I couldn't get in, and I felt so bad because I knew you wanted me to see it, but it was one of those ones where that person at the door is like, "Well, we don't know, and there's no more seats," and
Yeah.
I couldn't really say, "Don't you know who I am?"
You should have.
Because
You can
they would have
and
said, I do actually, and it's not enough.
And you're not coming in.
You're not Madonna. You're not Helen Mirren. You're not Judi Dench. We know who you are.
Judge of podcasting.
We
though.
know who you are. You're Deborah Francis-White from The Guilty Feminist, and it doesn't cut the mustard in terms of us putting out an extra chair. I think is what they said.
Yes, I think from memory, I handed you the flyer, and
I was
then
dressed in my catsuit, and I was taking I think it was drizzling. I was taking a few minutes, just I just need to breathe, get off the path of all the people for a moment.
I handed you the flyer, and then I turn around to flyer the next person, and then the next thing I hear is Linus sort of 100 meters down the street and just going, "Excuse me, I love you!"
Because I just heard, I was having my back towards all the people, and I just heard your voice, which obviously I've heard so many times before, and interacting with Joseph, talking about my show, and I was like, oh my God, and just had to run up, and so we chatted, and you were so lovely, and you were saying oh, this looks really fun, I'm going to try and see it. As, at the Fringe, you obviously meet a lot of people, and you meet some people you really admire and who are great, and most people are really nice to you, and they might say oh, I'm going to see if I can see your show. 99% that obviously doesn't come through. But then, a couple of days later, we got a message from you where you were we tried to see your show, I'm sorry I couldn't make it, will you do it again, can you do it anywhere else?
I've still never seen that show.
No.
The Angelica's show.
Yeah.
I might invite you here to just do it for me in my living room.
Oh, I would.
Yeah.
We can make that
Yeah.
happen.
Well, I think I could get a few friends in. We get some popcorn in.
Honestly, that
Oh
would
my
be
God.
Pass the hat.
Yes.
Everyone.
I do miss that show, actually. It was a really fun
it might
show to
be
do.
my favourite
My
show
friends
we've
of mine
made.
would pay a tenner to come round, and we'll put on some snacks.
Oh, we'll do it for free.
We'll bring some wine. We'll bring wine.
You don't have to bring wine. You're bringing the performance. But I remember in some banter we had, referred to you as twinks, and you
Yes.
said, "Can I put on my poster a twink?" Deborah Francis-White.
Yeah.
And I was like, sure, thinking you were joking.
Nope.
Next time I see one of your posters, it says a twink Deborah Francis-White. I think, oh my God, I hope
Yep.
people don't think that you asked me for a quote and I went,
Twink.
a twink? I mean, I can reasonably and honestly say you're a twink. That's literally all I can think of to say.
Because I think that
now I would, of course, say. In fact, I've given you a better quote for your Diana show.
You have, yeah. You've given us
I've given
an
it like
amazing
yes,
quote.
you were
I
in
mean,
one of our
anything
first
would-
Vox Pops. You did very well.
That's right. I would anything would be better than a twink. To be fair,
I
but
don't know. I think that
I
like
don't know. I
It
think
was
there's a lot.
funny,
There's a lot of gays
but-
listening to this podcast who might disagree with
yeah.
you.
Might
And
say-
also, I'm honoured at my age being called a twink. Great.
Well, I think though, because we made the video trailer for the Diana show, and it had a quote from Edgar Wright that said Linus was great, and then it had a quote from someone else,
I think it's James Graham.
and
then
saying
it
really
said,
enjoyed, and then it's Twink, Deborah Francis-White.
And then it goes, Daily Mail, repellent
Repellent
trash.
So
we got,
kind
like-
of ticked all the boxes.
We've all had repellent trash or similar from the Daily Mail.
Yeah.
Which
It's a badge of
us
honour.
has not been slagged off rightly. But of course, our team thinks, yeah, well, if you hate it, we'll love it.
Exactly, yeah. Like, I feel like that review, or like not even a review, that write-up has probably like, sold us more tickets. Like, anytime we reference that, people think it's hilarious and people...
Yeah, that and the
are more
Guardian
keen.
saying the Jellicle show had too many penis jokes,
Yeah.
and it has like 2, I think.
Well,
But that was too many for the Guardian.
But quote on the poster, too many penis jokes. There's going to be a certain demographic. It's
Oh,
going to be like,
Exactly. Like,
that's
that,
for me.
it did wonders.
Too many for you, Guardian, but not enough for me.
enough for anybody else.
No, exactly. And I'd be like, that sold us more tickets. And people afterwards be like, I don't feel like there were enough penis jokes. Like,
I'd like my money back, please. I
Yes.
was promised there'd be too many penis jokes,
Yeah.
and I feel there were barely the right number.
But then I think so. After that sort of chance meeting, and as Lena says, there's a lot of times where people say, "Oh, I'd really like to try" or whatever, and it doesn't really, nothing much comes of that. Not only did you then reach out, but then you've kind of gone above and beyond because you've seen our stuff, but you've also been in our stuff.
I have been in a
at
couple of your
least
shows.
twice.
Yeah.
I think.
and
We did
which
there was the Diana fundraiser,
Yeah.
and crucially the Wonka night.
Oh, that was so fun.
And
at
this
the Clapham
season,
Grand.
this season also features Why She Black, who played the unknown, and Felicia, who was the actual
Yes.
unknown.
But may
We'll
you
talk
not
about
listen
it.
to every single episode. They might just tune into their favourite person, which is Deborah Francis-White.
That's
is
right.
true.
Because you discuss me every week, as
Yeah.
discussed.
Precisely.
The way they pitched this to me, they said, we talk about you first. And I
Yeah.
went, what, me every time, regardless of the guest? And they were like, yeah.
Yes.
We just say, what do you think of Deborah Francis-White? And then, who's your Roman Empire?
Deborah
So
Francis-White has been everyone's Roman Empire up till now.
Yeah.
I would assume so.
Yeah.
I can only assume. So Wonka was, if the listeners haven't heard, there was a hilarious and also scammy when the Wonka movie came out. Wonka Experience in, was it Glasgow?
Glasgow,
Yeah.
yes, in a warehouse.
And they hired actors, didn't really tell them what to do, gave them AI written scripts that were kind of off-brand Wonka so that they didn't get into any copyright trouble,
Yeah.
which were absolutely terrible. And each child was given one jelly bean and a sip of lemonade or
Yeah,
something.
yeah.
And so it was such a sort of camp and misbegotten fiasco.
It was so fun.
You both decided to put on a big show in honour of that, and
did.
we all came out. And I think I did a monologue as if from a parent.
Yes,
Yeah.
if
Who
you
was
introduce
scammed
yourself
by
as
the
the
show.
world's angriest mother or something
right.
like that.
You were the angry mother of twinks, and we were your twink.
You brought
That's
us
right.
out and we sat on your knees on stage at the Clapham
And
Grand.
I think pretended to suckle, if memory
Yes.
serves.
Yes.
Because and that's because our WhatsApp group is called Mother and the Twinks. And
Yes.
I don't know why you started calling me Mother. I don't know the origin of that, but it just kind of came about.
Because you are a mother.
Yeah.
Sure.
You've been
And-
mothering so hard. Like, that's the biggest compliment a
I
gay
think your
man
mother
can
might
give.
have been
Yes.
at that show though, and I felt quite
my
bad.
mother was,
Oh, your
yes.
mother
Yeah.
came to
Yes.
that show.
She also mothered quite hard because she was on stage banging a
ABBA
stick
songs.
on the floor to the beat of ABBA songs. And
Excellent.
Everyone
I
had
mean,
to
it
guess
was
what they were.
such a hilarious night. And the person who played the real unknown,
Yes,
Yeah.
lovely Felicia.
this off-brand character, came on stage, and there were drag queens, and it was just a brilliant night.
It was
Yeah.
fun, wasn't it?
It was.
She's on this season of the podcast. She's 18 now. When that night at Clapham Grand, she was 16.
No, she was 17. She was 16
just
when it
turned
happened. I think
17.
She just turned 17.
And it was the
She
first time
should-
she'd ever left Scotland, was coming to London for that gig.
And she was, I mean, I've never seen an audience react like the way they did when she was brought up on stage. I was like, oh, wow. And it was so, she was so sweet and so
incredible.
amazing. And like, we didn't know because she was so young, but she picked up choreography straight away. She did all the things she did. She just was so natural on stage and so funny.
Yeah. Well,
And-
presumably that's why she was cast as the unknown.
Yes.
They saw that in her too.
Yeah,
But
the
they
charisma.
misused that
Yes.
and threw her to the lions, so to screaming children who didn't have any context for this.
No.
Whereas you treated her brilliantly and
Yes.
gave her a great platform,
Like the
and
queen
it was
that
wonderful.
she is, and
Yeah.
she deserves
Yes.
to be treated as such.
Absolutely.
And so now here we are, 2 years on from that event, sitting in
Yeah.
your house recording our podcast. And I think...
Oh yeah, as a new podcast, and we're being very new to this, getting to record with our podcasting hero. What are your advice? What are your podcasting advice to
what
us?
are we already doing wrong?
Yeah, what should we be doing? Please correct us.
I think people tune into podcasts for dynamics. This kind of podcast anyway. I mean, if you were doing The Rest is History, that you need to produce some history, but you're not. You're doing, the Roman
Nonsense.
Empire is history.
Yes.
But this podcast is about play. So what the audience are hoping for is rapport, which you certainly have in spades.
Thank you.
And then you get on guests that you're going to enjoy and have a great rapport with. And I would say, other than that, all it is about getting the podcast out at the same time each week or
Yes.
fortnight, and so that people reliably know it's going to come. Too many podcasts fail because people say, sorry guys, we didn't get it edited this week, and then it goes out Thursday at 9 p.m. It's can you feed your audience reliably
Yes.
something that they've come to enjoy? Basically, get them addicted to your rapport, and then don't take that pure sweet banter heroin off the streets for too long, or they lose their addiction. They pick up an addiction for something else.
Yes, it feels like quite a fickle world from a listener perspective, because everyone who listens to podcasts, you do flick between different ones,
yeah.
and I think you do expect one of the very first podcast I listened to, Answer Me This, with the lovely Helen Zaltzman and Ollie Mann. They released every Thursday, initially every week, then fortnightly, then monthly, as time went on. It's been going for nearly 20 years. And that was, and in my head now, every Thursday, my body still goes, oh,
Yes.
it's Answer Me This. And it's not necessarily because it's every month. But
Yes.
like that was
But you
so...
check in to see if it is.
Precisely.
Because you get into that routine of having that relationship. Like if you met a friend every Thursday for coffee. And so people love it on their commute. But I'm promiscuous with podcasts. I will just binge,
Yeah.
No
Mm.
Such Thing as a Fish.
Yes.
And then I will be in a mood for The Rest is Entertainment. But, they're talking about something that happened 6 weeks ago, and I'm catching up now with what they think about the whole Beckham debacle.
Yeah.
And I'm like, well, I don't mind, I get it. Or I just tune out of something for a while and tune back in. And I understand people do that with the Guilty Feminist as well. And I like to think, well, we're always here if you want us, or if we're doing a topic. At the moment, we're doing a season called The Road to Gilead, and it's turned into a second season now and a sort of more longer term project, and it's about the rise of the far right and how we can truly resist it.
I think because we mentioned, obviously, Guilty Feminist is recorded with a live audience. And I think that the Guilty Feminist, to me, as a listener, felt very at the forefront of doing podcasting live before a lot of other people were even considering.
We were always a live show.
So
Show one, we were in front of a live audience.
and so why was that? What was the thought process?
It was a comedy podcast. I mean, it is still the front loaded always comedy, but it does, well, not always, because sometimes it's on Zoom with an important and quite sad issue. But the beginning of it was always comedy, and in theatres it's always comedy. And I just said, how do we know it's funny unless there's an audience telling us when it's funny? Like, I didn't want it to be self-indulgent. I didn't want it to be like, ha, 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 I think you're funny. Do you think I'm funny?
Yeah.
And we wanted to do stand-up comedy. And that's got to be with an audience. And so I just was like, I don't want to do it in a studio. And we never did anything in a studio. Maybe one or two things where there was no other way, but we never did anything in a studio. If a guest couldn't come live, we didn't have that guest until the pandemic.
Yes.
And I personally felt, a lot of people said, oh, you got me through the pandemic, but I personally felt that the podcast really flatlined in the pandemic, because I felt like I'm trying to make someone laugh over Zoom and there's no audience. And I found it really tough, and I couldn't wait to get back out. And the shows are really picking back up now, because then I was away doing scripted stuff, and I've been in LA doing, in Australia doing scripted stuff. But now with The Road to Gilead, it feels like, I think I'd got to the point where I thought, what are we doing here? It's just feminists in the same room agreeing with each other while the world gets slowly worse. But now it's getting quickly worse. And now I'm like, okay, I know what the goal is. We keep reform out. And we get in a more, either the Greens or a green, more left-leaning Labour coalition. And I know what my mission is now. And I want to do Road to Gilead shows, if I'm allowed to, in America, in Canada, in Australia, in New Zealand. And I want to tour around this country with Road to Gilead because I feel a passion for it. And instead of us just going, oh, that's an interesting feminist book that you've got. I've also written a feminist book. Should we read each other's feminist books that we already agree with? We're going, what can we do? And I'm getting calls all the time from people now going, I want to do this. Any advice on how to do this? Get it up on its feet. How do we change the dial? How do we politicize the apolitical middle? How do we reach people who have given up on democracy? And how do I use my skills to do that? Not just go on a march. Going on a march is very important.
Absolutely.
But not only going on a march and then sharing a petition and then going to watch the traitors. Like, what else can we do? Not saying we don't need to watch the traitors and heated rivalry. Of course we do.
Oh, yes, we do.
Yeah.
We do. We need respite and we need joy and all of those things. But I don't want to just go, I've done a podcast, I've been on a march, I've done my bit. I want to go, what will change this country's mind? And if anyone gets a chance, listen to the Guilty Feminist, where I talked to Jane Bradley, who was one of the New York Times journalists who broke the expose on the links between the ADF, who were instrumental in overturning Roe versus Wade, and Farage and Reform UK. You know, those things I want to change, and I want to know how to change them, and I need coalition, I need people on the ground, I need to be part of a movement that's doing that. And so it feels to me now like Road to Gilead has this head of steam because other people are going, oh, thank God, I'm also in this situation. And by no means is Road to Gilead the only thing going on. There's so many people doing these things.
I think that's amazing, and I think that's one of the things that I find really inspiring about you and the Guilty Feminist and the work you do, in that it's always been very entertaining, which also then makes the actual political or important topics that are being discussed so accessible as well.
Yes.
It's not just like, oh, I now have to listen to, you know, just these miserable things that are happening. It's also with comedy, and you also, as now, have these things like, this is what you actually can do. Because I feel like so often you obviously are just so wore down by all the things that are happening, but it's like, well, what can I do? Maybe I can join a march. Maybe I can share reshare something on Instagram. But what's that actually going to do? I think you make things happen. And like, I remember seeing you at your live shows as well, or over the podcast, where you are like, you know, if someone raised an issue, you're straight away in the room being like, who can help this person with this? Who can donate towards this? Who can do something? And I think that's such an amazing skill and such an important thing to be doing, especially right now.
And I hope this isn't. Is this funny enough for you? Normally is this just a hilarious banter
I'm
fest?
thoroughly enjoying this conversation.
I feel
We're
like
very happy for this to be whatever. I mean, this is our chat, which normally is quite light.
Is this meant to be a bants fest where I'm telling you about our?
Oh, we'll get onto the road. There's space
Okay,
for bands,
fine.
but there's space for
Okay,
serious.
fine,
Like,
fine.
don't censor yourself, please.
We wouldn't invite the ultimate feminist and expect her not to talk about feminist issues as well.
Also, if you want something lighter and funner, I spent yesterday with about 6 comedians and other media voices. We all got together and watched the America's Next Top Model documentary,
How was it?
Reality Check.
I haven't watched it yet.
The second it dropped, basically the day it dropped. Everyone came round, there were snacks. We watched 3 hours back to back, then we made a podcast about it. It drops any minute now. So by the time this is out,
So this will be out. Yeah,
Yeah.
because we must
and
watch it.
we
must watch it.
we go deep dive into Tyra and the horror show that was America's Next Top Model. We thought it was fun to do because it's both a feminist expose but also a form of guilty pleasure that's mixed together, and we were pretty shocked by some of it, to be honest. We thought it was going to be lighter than it was.
That's the reactions I've seen on social media generally.
But you'll enjoy the podcast if you either think, I don't have time to watch that documentary, you can just go straight to the podcast, or watch it and then that podcast is a companion piece.
Deep dive.
That's really cool. But and also like having down Guilty Feminist turns 10 now.
Yes.
Which is amazing.
Yeah, it's turning 10 pretty much now.
Happy birthday.
Happy birthday,
Thank
Guilty
you.
Feminist. And like having done the podcast, obviously we talked a bit about its journey and what you've done with it, but do you have any moments that really stand out to you over those 10 years?
Oh, what
Either
a good
for being
question.
like really hilarious,
Yes.
or really like this was really a really important moment, or
Yes, I do. We were doing the Palladium, 100 Years of the Suffragettes. Emma Thompson, I just found her wandering around backstage in the wings, and I was like, that's Emma Thompson. And I'd met her once before, but literally just like, hello, Emma Thompson. And there's Dame Emma Thompson wandering around backstage. and she said, "Oh, I'm in the audience and I just wanted to say something, but I hear you're running over. Do you have time for me?" I said, "We'll pay the late fees."
Yeah.
Yes, are you kidding?
Do you
So
have time for my
she
nonsense?
came out on stage and she said, "When I was young, there was nothing like this. I was doing stand-up comedy and there was nothing like this. It was all a boys' club." And she said, and she was there with her daughter, who was a teenager at the time, and she said, "This is what, my daughter's generation need and have, and you're doing something incredibly important." And then she told the story of how she'd done stand-up comedy and what it had been like and everything, and she was just brilliant. And since then, she's been such a great friend and mentor to me. She's been on the podcast a few times, where we've talked about her brilliant feminist films and things like that. And that was a real moment. That was a real kind of watershed moment where I went, "Is this really happening? Is this really happening?"
Yeah.
And then other just brilliant episodes that, some of my favourite episodes, Jarlath Regan, I think he might have been the first man ever on the show. He said to me, "I'm a massive fan of the show. I just knew him through comedy." And he said, "I'm a massive fan of the show and I would like to come on." And I said, "What would you talk about?" Because we'd never had a man on. He said, "I'd like to talk about raising my son to be a feminist." He said, "Because I don't think that's my wife's job." And I went, "Booked."
Oh,
because
great.
a father saying, "This is my job and this is what I'm trying to do." And it was me and Cindy V, and my challenge, because we used to do challenges more then, and my challenge was to go into a school, like a comprehensive school, and just talk to boys about feminism. And so we had this sort of lunchtime chat group about feminism, and I was terrified, I remember. But it was so wonderful. Oh my God. I really wish I'd recorded it, but it felt like that felt a bit invasive.
You need to live in the moment, yeah.
But I was told the story, and I think it's called that episode, if you look it up, Bringing Up Feminist Sons or Raising Feminist Sons. But it was such an enlightening conversation. I don't know what that would be like now because, of course, there's so much manosphere content now.
Yeah.
But that might have infected boys. But I felt I had such a wonderful time with those boys. And Jarlath was brilliant. Sindhu V, of course, had teenage sons, was a teenage son. So, it was such a wonderful episode. And there's another one that I did with Cal Wilson, who so sadly died. It was the first time I ever really met her properly. She came on the show, and it was me and Celia Piccola, and that episode is called Nice Girls Don't, about what nice girls don't do. And Cal told this brilliant, poignant story about some kind of ritual that the boys used to do at her school, the rugby playing boys, if they liked a girl or you were now in the club, where they'd grab you and hold you down and bite your bum, basically. And this was being called, and then you'd have a bite mark, and this was like being branded, and it was some kind of you're accepted in the club ritual. And how she was held down, and how when she said, "Okay, now stop," they didn't. You can listen to it, it's really amazing, but it's so poignant. But that show is so funny. We laughed and laughed and laughed and laughed and laughed. It was so funny. Celia's stand-up in that is so funny. And then when Cal told that story, the gear changed in the room and we all cried. And I just love that about the Guilty Feminist, that there are times when we can be doubled over, we can be crying with laughter, and then we can be crying with grief and empathy and loss and anger. And it was so wonderful, that show. And I'm so glad I have it, because I lost Cal, and we all lost Cal to cancer, which was so terrible a few years ago. And she's one of my best friends. We toured around Australia and New Zealand together so many times with Grace Petrie, and we just had the greatest time of our lives, and we'll never not have that in a way. But it is, those two are shows that really stand out in my mind as something really special.
I mean, can you tell us about Bad Fairies?
Oh, yes, I can.
Yes, please.
We would love to know about it.
Absolutely. So Bad Fairies is a movie by Locksmith Animation and Warner Brothers Animation, and I'm the screenwriter. The brilliant Megan Dong is the director. If anyone's seen or would like to see Center World on Netflix, she's so imaginative. She's so brilliant at story, poignant, wonderful, hilarious, really just so imaginative and off the wall. She's just wonderful. And so I was very lucky to get hired as the screenwriter. It's about bad fairies living in London now. And we've cast Cynthia Erivo, who's already started recording some of the dialogue.
Yes.
The way animation is made is you're writing as you're recording, as you're rewriting, as you're casting, as some of it's going into production to be made to look all 3D and very, very beautiful. It's beautiful looking, this film. And I think it's going to be a truly wonderful movie for the whole family, all ages. Everyone's going to love it.
And how has it been writing for screen as opposed to writing for stage, or writing for the books, or writing for the podcast? Like, what is that discipline like?
I made an independent film in 2018, 2019 called Say My Name, which was wonderful. And live action's very different. You write it. If you've got a director who's, likes working with the writer, I was on set the whole time, which was amazing. We would sometimes rewrite scenes, or something wouldn't be working, and or we'd ad lib a new line or something like that. It was absolutely terrific. Animation's very different because you write a draft and then the animators have to take it off and make it very visual. So sometimes they'll knock out a load of lines because they can give the characters fun and games to do that's very physical instead, which is what you want. You don't want them to be beholden to some lines you wrote if now they've got a new life. So when you watch the reel, which is the sort of black and white interim version of the movie to see if it's working, and you've got scratch voices on it, which means I might do a character, whoever else is in the office might do a character, some of the characters might be voiced by the actors who are going to play them as they come in, as it goes on, but you're watching a sort of a sort of early kind of primitive version of the film. Sometimes you think, oh, I didn't write any of this scene, but we wrote the spirit of this scene. We wrote what's going to happen, but then it's like you left the characters out on the table and then they ran around like naughty imps doing something you didn't know they were going to do. But it's very delightful to watch that because you think, but you can't hold on to it the way with a live action. You might go, oh, well, that's not what I wrote. Yeah. I'd like to, be. You can't be as controlling with animation because there's so many people making it. Yeah. There was a sketch in Australia years ago on a sketch show that I used to find very funny, which was it was like a stop motion animation, like Wallace and Gromit. It was very, very, very simple though. It was just like a sort of like a sort of Play-Doh man who would go and then roll over and then jump up, and that would be it. It was like a tiny short. And the joke was at the end, the credits went on for ages of how many people had to make this man do this, and you just go, yeah, that is animation. I will not meet most of I could possibly meet all the people that won't work on this because they're in, some people, what they're doing is making the grass move properly and the shadow of the grass, or someone's hair move, and how does the wind move through hair, and it's so detailed. And so I feel very lucky. It's been such a learning curve, and I do think animation has the best storytelling now. If you watch a Pixar, it's like perfect. If this is here, then this is called back here. There's nothing wasted, and so I'm excited about the evolution of it as it comes. It'll be out May next year.
Exciting. And if you were an animated creature yourself, what would you be?
Oh, that sounds like a really good question. I think I'd love to be one of the fairies in Bad Fairies because the way they fly, the way their wings move is so beautiful.
Yeah,
and
they
they have they're bad fairies, so they're rebellious, naughty fairies. So yeah, that sounds like fun.
We like that. Yeah, I think let's dive into our Roman Empire, your Roman Empire.
Yes.
My name is Deborah Francis-White, and my Roman Empire is when Brooke Shields had to sing 4 lines from her seat in the audience of the Tonys. Neil Patrick Harris came round, put a microphone in her face to do her bit of the funny song, Broadway, It's Not Just for Gays Anymore. And she couldn't read the autocue, did not know her lines, fluffed it, asked to start again. Neil goes, 5, 6, 7, 8. She goes to start again. She fluffs it again. She says, I don't know what I'm doing. Someone hands her a piece of A4. She reads it off the A4. And Neil says something like, totally worth waiting for, completely improvised. And when I first saw that, I thought, oh, I don't know how I'm going to be able to sleep again watching that. How will she ever sleep again? And I think of it all the time. I think, because it's my great fear, because I started with improvisation. Mm-hmm. And everything I do is kind of improvised, ad-libbed, a podcast. Yes, I might have a bit written, but if I go off script, I probably will go off script with it. That's where I'm comfortable. If I've got a cue and I've got to give you that cue, or you can't say your line, I just think, oh my God, what if I don't though? Yeah. And then I mess you up. So Neil Patrick Harris is such and if you want to have a joyful afternoon, if you need respite from the news, just look at Neil Patrick Harris hosting the Oscars and his big opening numbers. He's
Yeah.
a showman. He's incredible. He's not always great on politics, but he's incredible.
But I mean, he's hosted the Tonys 4 times, and those numbers
They've
are
all been
really fun.
outstanding.
The best Tony host by a long way, because he can sing, he can dance, he can jump through a hoop, he can do a magic trick. He does. It's
bigger, like that opening, I think is the best one.
We're going bigger.
Because it's just so spectacular.
We probably don't have the rights to bigger, so we can't sing any more than that.
No,
But this song, it's not just for gays anymore, which is it's a sort of joke about the, Broadway now is not just for gays and your out of town relatives, and it's everyone's welcome to come and watch Broadway, and it's a Neil Patrick Harris is a gay man. He's obviously able to sing this song and make it very funny and self-effacing and joyful.
It is hysterical. And so you texted us saying, is this too niche? And before you'd even said it, I was like, well, I know it's not going to be too niche. This is going to be perfect.
And this is also what I feel like really a Roman Empire is, because obviously you can talk about like a whole...
We've talked about everything on this.
A film series or whatever that you're obsessed with, but I feel like when it's like such a specific moment that you can't stop thinking about, that's something like I really love. And I wonder, shall we recreate it? We've got the script.
Okay.
And I mean, as many people call you the Brooke Shields of podcasting anyway, the Brooke Shields of comedy, the Brooke Shields of entertainment.
I'm going to give you my laptop.
I've heard that many times.
Linus is going to play Neil Patrick Harris.
Oh God, I'm going to try to do the American accent.
Brooke Shields. We've written it out phonetically as best we can, and I'll do the backing music.
Oh, great. Brooke Shields, you're super hot. You made me think I was straight for like 23 years. Any comments?
When I'm up on stage, there are men who have and watch. I'm going to try that again.
5, 6, 7, 8.
When I'm up on stage, there are some... I don't know what I'm doing. Oh my God. There's a lot of... when I'm up on stage, there's lots of men who like to watch. In fact, one guy sent a twit pic of his crotch.
Nice, it was worth it. Totally improvised.
Outstanding.
Do you know what? I feel like I've exercised something, and I maybe won't wake up screaming about that anymore. I feel like, do you know what? I lived through it. It wasn't that bad.
I'm so pleased we could do that for you.
You know what? I got through it, and
but it is mortifying in that moment. I can't imagine the pressure of blanking your lines or getting it wrong, regardless of where you are, is always quite stressful. But doing it at the Tonys, live on TV, or recorded earlier moment or whatever.
But there were people in the audience like Robert De Niro. He literally afterwards, after Brooke Shields comes and goes, Robert De Niro?
Al Pacino.
Al Pacino.
Al Pacino. You're way too famous to be in this bit.
He says, Al Pacino, you're far too famous to be in this bit. Just after Brooke Shields has not only been in the bit, but fluffed the bit.
Fluffed it 3 times.
He's like, Brooke Shields, you're not too famous to be in the bit, and you couldn't do the bit. And Brooke Shields is great. I'm sure she's great.
Wonderful.
It could happen to anybody.
Absolutely.
I think she didn't have her glasses on.
Yeah.
She'd probably rehearsed it with her glasses on, and the probably had been one quick rehearsal, and she couldn't see the auto cue, or maybe the auto cue just didn't come up the way. I think she was reading it. I think it was just...
She was trying her best, but it is stressful.
It's also the fact she goes like, I'm going to try that again, and then messes it up.
Also immediately owns it. Do you know what I mean? Imagine if she hadn't owned it and done it again and just got to the end of that, then Neil would have had nothing to go. Do you know what I mean? Like, okay, sure, thanks.
What she could have done is a Moira Rose, God bless Catherine O'Hara, taken from us to and also, by the way, they were planning a Schitt's Creek movie, and which obviously can't happen now. I'm just so devastated she was taken from us because, not that, the real tragedy is that I don't get to see the Schitt's Creek movie, but it kind of is because she was having a second act.
Exactly.
And how many women get a second act in their 60s and 70s?
Exactly.
And she was in the studio, and she was booking all this work.
Such a powerhouse.
And Dan Levy had said, I've got an idea for the Schitt's Creek movie, and I think Nicole Kidman was going to be in it because she was a huge fan, and they trailed it at the end of saying that she was going to be in the last season. They said, she's going to be in what's it called? Sunrise Bay or whatever. I think Sunrise Bay. She was going to be in the sitcom, and I think they said that she was going to be in that soap because she'd said, I'd love to be in it. So then, of course, when we come to the movie. So can you imagine?
Oh,
Catherine O'Hara had so much more. And
Yeah.
it's so rare for a woman to get so much more in their
Yes.
70s. If you're Judi Dench and you've just worked back to back, but that's like a handful of people in the world.
yeah.
But she had sort of stopped being booked, and then suddenly Schitt's Creek had put her on the main stage again. And
Yeah.
so anyway, it reminds me of Catherine O'Hara in Schitt's Creek doing, as Moira Rose doing, "It Could Have Been You," because she clearly forgot the lyrics, and I thought she could have just started out and scattered.
Yeah.
I love that she just went, I'm going to do that again, because
Yeah.
that's sort of a very pro. And then Neil, of course, being such pro, going 5, 6,
6, 7,
7, 8.
8.
And then I can't read this. I don't know what I'm doing.
Yeah.
just owning it, getting the piece of paper, getting it through. Also, there's something that I love so much about those particular lines, which is twit pic, because it dates this so specifically to kind of 2011 times where you couldn't tweet pictures on Twitter. You had to use
TwitPic.
It was a separate website, and then
Yeah.
you like
It was an app.
Yeah, app. That's the one. Like it's so beautifully specific to that time and place.
Exactly. Twit pic of my crotch. No one would say that now. They'd say DM. One man said a DM of his crotch or something.
Yeah.
One man DM'd pictures of his crotch. That's
Maybe
what you'd say now.
that's what tripped her up. She's like, I can't deal with this twit pic. Like, what is that? Like, they just
Brooke
written-
Shields has clearly never done
Yeah.
her own twit pics. Yeah.
Brooke Shields she's never twit picked. No.
Can't blame her. She's got
Absolutely.
people to
She's
do
got
that
people
for her.
to do that.
Yeah. But I mean, it's also memorable. Like, I feel like had she always, like, however funny she would have done it, if she'd done it right, it would never be talked about. I mean, maybe in some rooms, but not like
Not
this.
in this room.
Not by
No.
Deborah Francis-White.
Have you had a
yeah.
moment where you Brooksed it?
Have you brooked?
Have you
Have you ever
brooked
brooked
Okay.
it?
I'm going to tell you a story now.
Settle in, everybody.
Settle in, children. Okay. So, a few months back, I was invited to go to the Choose Love 10th anniversary show at the Royal Albert Hall, which was a privilege on its own to be a guest. But because the Guilty Feminist has done a lot of work with Choose Love and collaborations over the years, Josie, who runs it, said, I'd love you to be on stage and do a link. So there were all these brilliant musicians and all sorts of people, international musicians with refugee experiences or countries represented, were doing music, and also some big famous musicians. So some people like me who'd had some kind of profile and had some kind of relationship were asked to do these links. So I said, yes, I would love to. And they came and got me and said, right, come backstage now. And they gave me a card with what I had to read on. And I rehearsed that card. And then they put me into makeup. And I was being given my glow up. And then someone came running down and said, you've got to come now, you've got to come now. So the hairdresser just sort of, said, that's it. And they said, run, you've got to run to the stage. Run to the stage. And they
You're
thrust.
backstage at the Albert Hall. That's a long old way.
It was a long way because it's if you don't know the venue, you've got to go round Rabbit Warren. So I was following this person. We were running and I was in my heels, running. And then they just sort of say, go. And they push me out to the stage and I read the card. And this is what I say. Wow. Thank you so much. That was Ukrainian-British violinist Roman Litwinov and cellist Robert Wheatley. I was very moved, and I'm sure you were too. You could really feel the spirit of the people of Ukraine filling the Royal Albert Hall in that beautiful piece of music. Now, please give your attention to this video. And then this video comes up and I come off. And I could see, at the time, I remember thinking, the audience really aren't responding to this. So I'd done a little bit of banter when I first came out, whatever.
Sure.
But they just then weren't responding to what I was saying. And I thought, it's a big hall, it's a big space, and, fine, whatever. I did it, but it sort of, because I was shoved out so quickly, I sort of missed it. I was just like, quick, read the thing. But I could see some kind of, anyway, I went to go back to my seat and said, thanks very much for having me. And this runner said to me, I think you've got to stay because you're needed again to do another link. And I had said to them, because I'm an improviser and things, I don't mind. Some people go like, I need to know what I'm doing. So I said, if anyone drops out, let me know. I'm happy to fill in.
Sure.
So I thought, someone must have dropped out. I said, really though? I said, because they did just say you're just doing one. And they said, yeah. So I said, could I see the card? Oh. And they gave me the card and it said, wow, thank you so much. That was Ukrainian-British violinist Roman Litwinov and cellist Robert Wheatley. I was very moved, and I'm sure you were too. And I went, I said, sorry.
Sounds familiar.
I said, why? That's the old card. I must need a new card. And they went, no, you don't need a new card. I said, why don't I need a new card? They said, well, because last time you were given the wrong card, that wasn't the right card. I said, so sorry. So I went out and thanked this Ukrainian British violinist and cellist who had just been on the stage, and they said a Sudanese rapper.
Brilliant.
Close. Very
Brilliant.
close.
And I went, is that why everyone stared at me? And they were like, yeah. And they said, look, you don't have to go out and do it again. We can give it to someone else. And I went, oh no, I'm definitely going out to do it again.
You
I
have
said,
to.
This is going to be the biggest laugh of my whole career. Nothing I could write could be funnier than this. So then I stood in the wings as I watched the violinist and the cellist play, and then I came out and I just looked at the audience, and because they could see my face, the expression of my face on the big screen behind me, I just went, wow, thank you so much. That was Ukrainian British violinist Roman Litwinov and cellist Robert Wheatley. I was very moved, and I'm sure you were too. I feel I owe you an explanation, Royal Albert Hall. I lied before when I said I wasn't moved. When I said I was moved, I wasn't moved. I'm a feminist, but I was in hair and makeup, so I hadn't seen it. And when I said you could really feel the spirit of the people of Ukraine filling the Royal Albert Hall in that beautiful piece of music, not one of you said no, you couldn't. Where's a heckler when you need one? But honestly, the laughs in that room when I walked out again, before I'd even started, and then just seeing my face going, wow. Wow. And they just all knew. And it was just so funny. And I honestly got more plaudits for doing that than like people. I mean, I just found it so funny. It wasn't like doing it for plaudits, but I found it so funny. But very famous people afterwards were crossing the floor to go, oh my God, that was the funniest thing.
Great.
And you handled that really well or whatever. But it was just funny. It was just so funny. And I just thought if I'd just done the thing where there'd been no error, I would have been entirely forgettable.
And
entirely forgettable. Sometimes. Like, I'm still talking about Brooke Shields. If she'd done that well, I wouldn't even remember she was in the song.
No, absolutely
and
not.
People don't. I mean, things going wrong are the funniest things that can happen. Like, so often in like our shows, because we obviously have a lot of audience participation in our shows, we never quite know what's going to happen anyway, and a lot of technical things. When things go wrong, it just adds to it, and then I feel like audience loves when they see something that's not just like. That's not meant to happen. That's not rehearsed.
Yeah, it's live and just for them that time. Do you want to tell the LA story?
Oh yeah, I mean, when we performed in LA last year, we performed Gwyneth skiing, and I was interrogating Joseph in court. I was Gwyneth Paltrow, he was the other man, and I started because I accidentally kicked the box that his puppet lawyer lives in, obviously.
Yep.
So she then started like throwing like.
Abuse.
Yeah, abuse at me because I had kicked her box, which is like fair enough. So we ad-libbed around that, which happens sometimes. But we did it to an extent where we're then like, oh no, we are now doing this this is the scene that's the most verbatim lines where I sort of like have to say the things that Gwyneth actually said in court, and I have no idea where I am now because I've just improvised with this puppet in a box. And we tried to get it on track a couple of times. We called out our stage. I mean, the audience were very much on board. Yeah. We called out the stage manager, and he gave us a line. We started that one. It's like, no, this was ages ago. This is not right.
We've done that. So we went back to James and said, no, James, we've already said this line. He went, there was a pause, and then you heard from the tech box. Then I have no idea.
He'd done the show so many times. He did not have the script anymore.
No, he'd packed up. He was ready to go home.
Yeah, and you ran into the dressing room to find this. You left me on stage. You'd be
like,
Gwyneth,
entertain them.
And I then added a couple of jokes. But because the audience was so good, I feel like you can feel when you can really play it out as well. And then eventually you came back. We got it back on track eventually. And people told us afterwards like how much. And even this year, someone who's part of our management team in LA now, he said before he was part of that team, he had seen that show in LA. And he was like, that was the most magical moment in the theatre I've ever had.
Yes, something real is happening.
Yeah, and that was so. I was like, I was a bit disappointed seeing your shows this time around because nothing went wrong.
It's so true, though. Do you know what? It is a very British thing as well. That in Edinburgh, I remember one year I had a really tough room. It was like hot. There was something about, I'd seen other people's shows in that room and no one could really get the audience going. I don't know if it was the rake and the heat and the da-da-da-da-da. And you can say you blame the venue, but I've had other venues where every day
sometimes it is the fault of the space.
You'll have a flat day, but some spaces are harder to play. And this space was really hard to play. And I remember one day the lights went out and the tech just couldn't get them on. And so I continue doing ad-lib jokes and playing with the audience, trying to do crowd work in the dark and things like that. When the lights came back on, the audience was so on side. They were like, yay, because you keep going. Yeah. And it's the Blitz spirit. This is it's a really British thing. It's like, we all got through that together. I mean, the Blitz spirit is so funny here because do people imagine the Blitz was the lights going off for 5 minutes? No.
Yeah, pretty much.
But that people were real hardship. But there is a thing of like, we got through that together. We pulled through that together. And now they're so on side.
Yeah.
And I actually said to the tech, do you think you could make something go wrong technically every day? Because that's the only way to get this room on side. And once they've been through something with you and they've seen your resilience, they just come around. And, I think exactly that they just it feels like something real's happening. And we all remember, like, it could be going to the ballet and seeing a ballet dancer fall over and get back up. That's a much more memorable ballet than any other ballet you've ever seen. Because you watched a real moment of something, a crisis, and then somebody be resilient in that crisis. And you saw something no other audience will see. And so there's a real joy to it in a way.
When something goes wrong on stage in one of our shows, the look that we give each other is like, okay, now
and
we're
like, if
on.
someone gets
now we're
a
alive.
little line wrong or anything, the other one's just there to like call them out and then really
it's
well,
attacking.
it wakes you up as well. You're like, oh fuck, like in a really serious play or something. My play Never Have Over that was on at Chichester,
which was very, very good. We saw it in Chichester.
Thank you very much, a delight. And I'm so thank you for schlepping to Chichester. I really appreciate that. And
Wouldn't do it for anyone else.
Thank you. It's wonderful though. It's a
it's
short
great.
train trip, listeners.
It's
Go
really
to
not that
and
bad.
especially during the summer, I feel like then
it's so
quite a
lovely.
nice day out.
It's lovely and it's such great stuff on there.
Excellent cafe there as well.
Beautiful. So, but I remember saying to the cast, because it was new writing and we'd worked up, I said on press night, I remember saying to the cast, please don't let the quest for boring perfection get in the way of magical connection. So as long as you're connecting, someone can drop a line, whatever. It's my favourite joke. It doesn't matter. What's more favourite than my favourite joke is watching the two of you go, oh, we better plug in here because we've lost a bit. So where are we now? Who are we? Where are we? Because then it's a bit like talking about the animation characters coming to life. You watch, who are these characters when they're not on this train track? And, they're over here and he's actually coming to her rescue. And you sort of see two stories now. One is, firstly, the audience usually don't know. But the actors, you see the actors saving each other, but also that in sort of coming into the characters a little bit. And that's a joy to watch for me as a playwright. Just, something's gone wrong. This is what's it going to be like now.
One of our shows and going,
whew. Well, it's like, and you never, I feel like, being open to those moments is such a joy. Like, I still laugh about, like, you talking about that really made me think about in New York City, when we were performing, and they had, so you play the puppet lawyer as well, and as soon as you give Joseph a puppet, he becomes possessed by that puppet, and she just takes over.
I know it's such a wanky thing, but genuinely, if I'm doing a puppet thing and something happens, I'm like, I promise you I had nothing to do with this.
She makes me laugh so much, that puppet, and you never know what she's going to do.
Say.
But there was this woman who was also a performer who played one of the onstage roles, and she was great, but she was extremely flirty with the puppet, and there was just this energy. I mean, the puppet is like interrogating her court, but there was this very like sensual energy between her and the puppet, and they kissed.
Oh my God.
And it was like, Joseph just told me afterwards, it was like, I can't tell you how little I instigated that. Like,
wow.
It was very much
they were looking at each other, the moment was there.
This puppet. Wow. They had this moment.
They just had this
wow.
And then they carried on.
Interrogate. And I feel like we're obviously like, we would never bring a woman up on stage in our show and kiss them whether with a puppet or not.
No.
But she was just like going in for a kiss with this puppet. And I still think about that moment and laugh about it so much because like, why would there be like
that we didn't know, like, we didn't know her before. We hadn't cast her deliberately because she was a performer.
No, exactly.
We cast audience members.
But she was in the moment and playing and yes-anding and something
and
was...
like,
and
bringing her own interpretation.
My puppets are much better at yes-anding than I am. I think Linus will vouch that if I'm not playing a puppet, if I'm playing a character on stage, I'm quite bad at yes-anding. There's something
not bad, but sometimes you're like...
I think I'm cynical too quickly to be like, well, that was weird, kind of like forewarning. Whereas the puppets will be like, sure, they're off on.
Well, it's a distance from the self, a puppet, isn't it? So it gives you more permission to. Well, the puppet's doing it; it's not me doing it,
Precisely.
and so you would, of course, resist if a woman looked like she was going to kiss you on stage. You'd think, well, I don't know this person. They're not. Am I going to get?
Hang on a minute. Yeah.
Is this?
Yeah.
Then am I going to have to do a play about the court case that happened because
Yeah.
because of the court case play I was doing?
Yes.
So you think, oh no, and you would protect.
Yep.
Also, a puppet hasn't got a tongue, so there's no likelihood that that will go wrong. But you feel like, have you ever done mask work?
Very little. I did a little bit of it at school.
If you've ever read Keith Johnston's Improvisation in the Theatre, amazing book about his own transformation from frightened human being who'd been through school and being told every instinct he had was wrong or to be guarded against, out into this this practice of improvisation and free flowing. But the last chapter is on masks, and he would do this work where you'd put on a mask and you'd look quickly in the mirror and surprise yourself into being somebody else. And then the mask would just make a noise and make a movement, and you could do this incredible work building up characters. Every time you put on the mask would learn a little bit more, and the mask could learn to talk. And it's so amazing. And having done that work, it's such a freeing work, because again, the mask will do something that I would never do.
No.
Yeah. And then, I mean, that's so fun.
You
I mean,
asked me what I do with the orphanage puppet in The Fit Prince, which is quite like, she sits on top of my head. She's about 7 foot tall. She's very, very, very big. And he's like, what are you doing under there when she's the puppet? I was like, honestly, 99% of the time I have my eyes closed.
Wow.
I thought that
She's
was
just
hysterical. Because I'm like, well, I'm just
yeah.
concentrating on what she's doing. It's easier for me to close my eyes and be able to concentrate on her.
That reminds me of Phoebe in Friends with a doll's house when there's a fire going, the Foster puppets!
Very that coded.
But I feel like drag is a form of mask as well. Or like, I do feel like when I'm playing, whereas Princess Diana, Gwyneth Paltrow, or like, a woman, the freedom I have that I don't feel like I have when I am myself, or a male character, like it's so liberating, and it's so like, I can behave in such different ways. I can.
Well, drag is a mask, isn't it? Really,
absolutely.
it's a mask that gives permission, like
Yeah.
a puppet, or like any of these things, like a literal mask. All sorts of ways that we would like to escape our inhibitions, but we cannot. But that kind of work allows an escape. Improvisation allows an escape.
Yeah, massively.
Release your inhibitions.
Feel
put
the
that
rain
mask on your face.
As Natasha Bedingfield famously sang. So maybe what we've learned here is that if Brooke Shields had been wearing a mask, complete freedom. And maybe she was, in turn, wearing a mask of
Maybe Brooke
her
Shields is a
being at the
mask.
Tonys. Maybe she is a
Maybe
mask.
Brooke Shields is a character, and the real Brooke Shields, the human being Brooke Shields.
Yeah.
The real Brooke
very
Shields is the
different.
friends we made along the journey.
Friends we made along the journey.
Well, whatever, close enough.
On that note, I think that's probably enough talking.
Thank you, Deborah, so much for coming on this podcast. Thank you for talking about Brooke Shields, as well as important political issues, and for being so wonderful.
Where can people find you?
On Instagram at DFDubs, DFDUBZ, that's short for DFW, my initials, or at The Guilty Feminist, both of those. And if you would like to know more about Road to Gilead, go to guiltyfeminist.com, sign up to the mailing list.
Yeah.
Excellent.
And will you be wearing a mask at all your live shows?
Or your
How do you
glasses,
know
the
I'm
mask?
not? This could be a Mission Impossible mask. Under here, I could be Gwyneth Paltrow. This could be my activist side.
That would be a
I
hell of a
don't feel
reveal.
like, I feel like it would have been a different conversation then, but who knows?
Yeah, the
Who's to
cease and
say?
desist would have come swiftly for Gwyneth Goes Skiing. Thank you so much. You can find us on social media at Awkward Prods, etc.
And follow us. Follow Deborah, follow Guilty Feminist. Go and see her live. She's
Yes,
fantastic.
please do.
Maybe you'll catch her brooking live even. I would say, though, when you were talking about your experience of brooking, you didn't actually brook. They gave you the wrong card.
It's
That's
an
true.
accident,
The
an
mistake wasn't-
inadvertent
yeah.
brooking.
It
That's
wasn't on
inadvertent
you.
brooking. And I think that's why it was so easy for me to go out and
Yeah.
do a funny stand-up set
Yes.
about it, improvised stand-up set about it, and make the audience laugh, is because I'd been handed the wrong card.
Yeah.
However,
She was love brooked.
as a performer, of course, you're saying you've seen something and you haven't. So there's a sort of, and to be fair, I was put into hair and makeup. It wasn't really my fault, but there is a sort of relationship you have with the audience where you have to go, I apologize, I'm a feminist, but I was having a glow up.
Yeah.
And, so there was enough ownership that it could be self-deprecatingly funny.
Yes.
But not so much that I felt embarrassed. I thought, God, I'll never, they said to me afterwards, you were so good about that. a lot of performers or people we asked this would have been really annoyed, like they'd been made to look bad. And I said, "Are you kidding? It was the funniest thing that's ever happened to me. I'll never be funnier on stage than in that moment." The whole Royal Albert Hall roaring with laughter. I was like, it was a gift. Like, what kind of lack of sense of humour would you have to not find that funny?
Honestly.
Exactly, yeah.
And also, what kind of come on, we're here for Choose Love. It's all being done on some rubber bands and string because they want to spend all the money and supporting displaced people.
Yes.
So you can't say, but we should have had a 4-hour rehearsal. Like, it was so much fun. But you're right. In terms of my own brooking, I once dried in a play when I was at university. And when you dry on stage, it's not just that you've forgotten a line, you've forgotten the play you're in.
Yes.
You don't know where you are. It's the
or who you are.
worst feeling in the world. That has never happened to me since.
That's incredible, though.
I think if I ever have lines to learn, I really learn them because that happened to me once. I just had an out-of-body experience, but I know people have had it in the Mousetrap. Because it's the longest running play, they give people bonuses to stay on in the Mousetraps. They don't have to recast. So they'll say, just do one more year and we'll give you this big bonus.
Yeah.
And I know people who've disassociated in it because it's not the kind of work we can go, but my character's doing this. Or you think, there's not songs and dances. No. So you can be like, okay, I'll throw myself into this. And I know people who've gone, I don't know where I am.
No.
I have lost
it's terrifying.
all sense. And of course, for you, that's the millionth time you've done it. But for that audience,
exactly.
They've saved up to come to London. They wanted to see the oldest running play. They've booked a babysitter back at the hotel. They've, whatever it is. And they are there going, this is our big moment. And someone's just standing on the stage seeing themselves float. So you're thinking, God, I've got to give this audience the best show.
Yeah. I sometimes have it on stage where I open my mouth and I hear words come out and I'm like, that's not the script.
There's a lot of those. We'll be backstage and he'll say a line that's vaguely related to what was written by him.
Or like I'll have to then be like really focused. I think like it's a good thing when you're like, okay, it gets you so back in the moment, and then you're like, I now have to somehow work my way around to where like the next cue is or where the next tech thing happens.
But the shows you do are sort of like the shows I do, in as much as there's always an unknown quantity to them because you interact with the audience and things. So they're kind of perfect. They're a perfect vehicle for taking an A road rather than a motorway sometimes. You know, sometimes you go, we've come off too early.
We'll still get
there. It's fun, exactly.
We'll do U-turn, we'll come back round. We'll go around the roundabout, we'll stop at the services, we'll get back.
So sometimes it's okay to brook.
Exactly, it is. And I feel like so many of the most, like the funniest moments from our shows have come from brooking, and sometimes there's when a show goes a little bit off, or like you ad-lib something and you realize that's actually like great and you keep that in the show.
Yes, all the time. Some of the best bits of my work are from brooking.
And people still seem like there's some bits in like Diane in particular where people still seem to think that they are ad-libs every night, but they're the same
a little fake brook.
They started off as ad-libs and they were like,
so you need to stop talking. You're giving away your company secrets. Thank you for listening. We'll see you next time. Have a good week. #GetBrooked. Deborah Francis-White. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you, Deborah.
Thank you for having me.